Well, hello heroes and villains. My name is Ash and welcome back to my channel. If you are here, I would hope that you know why, and this is going to be part of my readathon, the Libraries of Dragons readathon. This is side quest 3. If you have no idea what this is a D&D inspired readathon or a Dungeons and Dragons inspired readathon where you get to have your own dragon, get to go on adventures, get to roll dice sometimes, and have a fun adventure with you and your dragon friend. These are side quests, they are completely optional. I would advise to do them though because you get extra trust points and you also get gold. And you also get perks for doing them. For this one, you actually get a pretty big boon, so obviously I would recommend this one especially, but if you don't really want to do it, you don't have to. If you have not started the readathon yet and you want to take part, I will put a playlist up here and also in the description down below. There's also a Discord, which is completely optional, so if you do not want to go on Discord, it is an optional thing you can do. Every single chapter in side quest has their own independent FAQ, so questions I think that would people be asking the most. So if you have a question, please check that out first. If you still have questions and you are comfortable doing so, ask either in the comment section below for this side quest or on my Discord. Another thing I wanted to mention that's going to be kind of shifting in my readathon is that the diversity prompt. So usually when I have a thing where if you read 50% or more books that are diverse in your TBRs, for my readathon specifically, you get extra trust points. So I have this because I want people to read more diversely. The bookish space is definitely not very good in that regard, and so I wanted to have that as an option. Although at the time I didn't make it an option, I made it so that you have to do that in order to get trust points. I have changed that now to being optional. So if you want to read diversely and you want to actually try to push yourself to do that, if you are someone that has a hard time doing so, then I would recommend to keep that. Some people weren't comfortable labeling what diverse is. Some people just didn't really like it or the term or anything like that. So if you have any issues like that with it, then it's completely optional now. You can still read LGBTQIA+ authors or characters and just not count diverse because you maybe just find this to be something that you just read a lot and you don't really want to count it as diverse because to you that's just normal reading or just the average thing that you read. And so if you want to be more comfortable, it is completely optional now. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but I am still doing it for myself because I'm from North America. A lot of what I read or what I see in the book space is North American white authors, and so I want to change that personally. But if you're not comfortable or you don't really like labels again or whatever, it's optional now, so just keep that in mind. So let's get into the actual side quest, shall we? We are in side quest number 3. This chapter is called Companions. This is where we will be getting either allies or partners, depending on what you want. So you can have either an ally, which is a friend, someone who has a platonic relationship with you, so just someone that is close to you as a friend, maybe even someone that's just starting a friendship with you. And then there is the romance path, which is someone that will become your partner if you want to. They could be your partner in marriage, they could just be someone that you just started dating, this could be someone that your character has a crush on, whatever it is. This is more of a romance heavy path, so if you don't read romance, it might be a bit difficult. So the alliance prompts will be different than the romance prompts. I recommend definitely going into the one that you're comfortable with. You can have a maximum of 2 of either or, so you can have up to 1 friend if you want, 1 partner if you want, or you can have 2 total. So the maximum amount is 2, so you can have either 1 ally, 1 romance interest, 2 allies, 2 romance interests, I'm not judging anyone, and either or. So again, you can choose between that kind of combination if you want to. So the minimum amount of prompts you'll be getting for each person is 4. So if you want 1 ally, you only have to do 4 prompts. If you want 2 total, so if you want an ally, a romance interest, 2 allies, etc., that will be 8 prompts. So the maximum amount of prompts you'll be getting is 8, and the minimum is 4. Unless you want to double up on the prompt areas, I'll explain this soon, sorry, but if you want to do multiple rows and columns, you can actually technically do all the prompts, which is 32. Probably wouldn't recommend it, but you can also double up on prompts. So if you really want to push yourself and do 32 prompts, go ahead and do so. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you want to do it, go ahead and do it if you really want to challenge yourself. Keep in mind that if you want 2 allies of either side, you will not get any more benefits in the future. So this will benefit you. Having an ally will benefit you, at least 1, but you will not get extra benefits for having a second person. So if you decide to have a ally and romance interest or anything in between, you will only get kind of like a 1 benefit, the same way if someone only had 1 friend. This is more of a backstory of your character, so if you decide to have 2 instead of 1, this is just me more of an in-depth look at your character as to who they are. I already know I'm going to have an ally and a romance interest for my character, but again, only 1 can actually assist me in the future chapters and side quests, which they can do. I recommend having at least 1 because they will actually help you either support you with medical assistance like healing, or they will look after you and help you in combat. So they'll actually fight alongside you, which will give you more numbers in attacking, and they can also help heal if you or other people around you need to be healed. So recommend at least having one partner. Again, having two does not actually affect anything. It doesn't give you bigger benefits in the future, but if you want to have a second person, I would recommend doing so if you want to. Again, I'm doing two because I want to have at least one friend and one romance interest, so I'm going to do that. So that way I'm going to be doing two characters, which is a minimum of 8 prompts. Again though, doubling up is fine, so don't worry, 8 prompts sounds like a lot. And you also have until November. November is the next chapter, so you have a while until you have to worry about finishing these prompts. So take your time, there is no time limit. Even after November, you can still take part, so no pressure on yourself, none at all. This is an independent readathon that has no competition aspect at all, so take your time, doesn't matter how long it takes for you. Just keep going until you finish this and then move on to the next one. So let me show you exactly what the prompts look like. There is a reason behind the madness, so let me show it to you first, explain it a little briefly, and then we'll go over the prompts. The prompts are pretty self-explanatory, but I'm still gonna go over them anyway, just in case. I will use the Path of Alliance to show you first. So the Path of Alliance is the friendship path. This is actually something I've seen, I don't know what the name of this exact kind of game is, but this is something I've seen on Instagram from the past or Bookstagram in the past, where you pick your favorite thing on each category and it gives you an overall outcome. And so for this one, it's kind of similar, except instead of choosing one for yourself, you actually do this based off of books that you read. So there are 4 options. I will also say this, if you ever think of a character that is not on this board, please just decide which one is most associated with that character, and you can just do the prompts for that. So the first one is a professor, a teacher, a librarian. This is anyone that's in more of a scholarly role. So if you want to have anyone within that category that is there, this could also be like trainers, people that train within like dragons. Another one I haven't really written down that can be also in this category is like a captain. So a captain of the Dragon's Guard or something that can be within this. Second one is a bodyguard or royalty. So this is either or, you get to choose between the two of them. So either a friend with your bodyguard or a friend with one of the royalty. So king, queen, prince, princess, duke, duchess, anything in that regard, if you have one. You cannot do this if you don't have royalty in your realm. So I think in chapter 2, I believe, you get to decide what your realm looks like and what is there. If you do not have royalty, technically this doesn't count, but I will say one thing. If you have a neighboring kingdom or a neighboring realm, you can also be allies with their king, queen, prince, princess, whatever. So this can also be the neighboring realm. So it doesn't have to be your own. So if you want, you can also do that for that. So if you want like a long distance friendship or one that is not that far off or one that you're in an alliance with another kingdom, that can also work. The next one is very wholesome and sweet, and that is childhood friend. This is a friend that you've had since you were younger at any point in time. This one's a really cute and wholesome one. So nothing really to talk about on this one because it's pretty obvious. And then the last option is the villain or the rival. Yes, you can somehow make friends with the villain or the rival. I don't know how you're gonna do it, but it's completely up to you. Either you do this out of true friendship, or maybe you do it out of a way to get to them somehow. Maybe like them trying to get onto their good graces so that maybe one day you can figure things out and maybe find a way to destroy them. If you are already a villainous character, this can actually be the hero that you are actually doing this with. So again, it's up to you depending on your character. If they are like a good character, if they're an evil character, just do this at your own will and decide what you want to do. The prompts will stay the same regardless if you are a hero or a villain, but for the most part, it's going to be pretty interesting to see what people do with this one. So the villain is more like the enemy of your character's either realm or world, someone that is pretty big and bad in this area, the big bad, if you will. And then the rival is just someone maybe that's not as, huge and grandiose. This is your rival. This is someone that maybe you grew up having to fight against or fight with, or had to fight within the class because maybe you both had really good grades, or maybe you guys were really good fighters, or maybe something along the lines of that. And so this is really interesting for that because it'd be a lot of fun. It'd be a lot of fun to have a rival character that becomes your friend eventually. Or maybe you're friends, but like your rivals at the same time and you kind of bicker a lot, but you're still friends. And for the romance path, it's the exact same thing. You will have the exact same people that you could choose between, but these will be romance interests instead of allies. So you could romance a teacher, professor, anything under that category if you want to. You can also romance bodyguard royalty. Again, same thing as the first one. If you decide to do royalty once more and you don't have royalty or your character is one as well, you can just go with the neighboring one. So if you want to do that. Childhood friend, so a romance interest as your childhood friend. So maybe they had a crush on you, you had a crush on them. Very cute and wholesome. And then the last one is the rival or the villain. This one's actually a lot of fun. Romancing the villain or romancing your rival sounds like a great time. I have a few books that have done this trope before. Even like the villain isn't considered really the villain though. They're kind of like the one that people see as a bad person, but they're not really a bad person. I'm gonna explain how this works and then I'm gonna do all the prompts. So let's talk about how this works. In this, there is 4 columns. Each column is depending on the person. So professor, teacher is one column, bodyguard royalty is another column, childhood friend is one column, and villain and rival is another column. And then the vertical rows on the top, so the ones that go vertically, these are the ones you have to cross off at least one of. Let's just give an example as to what this would look like. So let's say you read a YA book, you mark off YA. You read a book with found family, you mark off found family. Fantasy book, you mark off fantasy. And then you have a book that's been on your TBR for a long time. This would show you this. And this would actually mean that the professor is the one that you decide upon. The one that has the most amount of prompts marked off is the one that you'll be getting at the end. So keep that in mind. The one that if you want one specifically, make sure you try to read the prompts mostly for that one. The majority at least, or a tie. So if there is a tie, I will also show you what that would look like. If you do YA, found family, fantasy, features friendship, all that, you can actually decide between the two that have a tie. So they both have two, so you can do this. This also shows you that you can actually technically do more than just one in each row. So if you want to do multiple books in different rows or the same rows, you can also do that. It depends on what you want. You can either do 4, one in each row, and decide on there, or if you want to be a little bit more difficult or you want to read more books and double up on prompts, you can actually have multiple prompts done in each row. I'm just trying to make it so that way you can actually understand it visually. Hopefully this makes more sense to you. If it's still confusing to you, I deeply apologize. I will hopefully answer questions if you have any. Young adult, featuring politics, middle grade, morally great main character is one row. You need to at least read one in those so that way it would count. So each horizontal row has to have at least one thing marked off in order for it to count. So that is the most important one, as long as you have the majority in each column. So each column within those characters need to have the majority or tied. So if it's tied, you could just choose between the two characters. But yeah, make sure you have at least the most amount in that category, if not tied with another one. And the last thing I want to say before we get into the prompts is that you can also tie and mix match. So how exactly does this work? Well, if you have a romance path and you want to romance your childhood friend, but maybe one day they become the villain and you still love them, but you have this tumultuous relationship between them because they're now a villainous childhood friend. That would be a lot of fun, honestly. If you want to do this, just do 2 and 2. So 2 under childhood friend and 2 under villain rival. You can even do the royalty and rival. So maybe the rival princess from a different kingdom. If you want to do that, that sounds like a fun time too. So again, 2 and 2 or 3 and 3, 4 and 4, depending on what you want. They have to at least be the exact same amount of prompts fulfilled within their columns in order for it to count. Again, if you have any questions, if this is really confusing, I apologize. I will put this on the document and write it all out. Hopefully it still makes sense. Once you make a second companion, this completely wipes a new slate. So you have to actually redo this to do your second character. So you cannot choose 2 characters in one sheet. You have to redo it. So you cannot have a tie and say, hey, that's 2 different friends. No, you actually have to redo it and do at least another minimum of 4 prompts. So 4 prompts for one person and 4 prompts for another minimum, which means 8 prompts total. So you cannot have the same board for 2 characters. You have to have it 1 character each. Okay, we're finally going over the prompts. So let's start off with the friendship path. We're going to go under the columns depending on the people. So let's start with the professor, teacher, kind of scholarly role. So this is going to be the column for that. Again, you only have to do at least 2 within this row to actually get this option. The first one is read a YA, very self-explanatory, read a young adult book. The second one is found family, read a book with found family elements, a character who finds themselves with a bunch of new people and kind of grows a friendship between them that becomes kind of like a family. The third option is a nonfiction, read a nonfiction. And the fourth and final option is either to read a book that's commonly read in school. A lot of these are classics, so things that either you read in school or people popularly read in the school setting. If you don't want to do that, there is an option to also just read a library book. So if you read a library book, that also qualifies for the exact same prompt. The next character is the royalty or bodyguard character. The first prompt for this is to read a book featuring politics. You can either go into fantasy, nonfiction, anything in that regard. A lot of books feature politics because reading is political, so whatever you think qualifies for this, there's a lot of options, so go at your own pace and choose a book that you think qualifies for this one. The second one is a royal main character, a character who is a king, a queen. I think it has to be the main character though, so a prince, princess, king, queen, Dutch, Duchess, again, who is the main character. They don't have to be a first-person protagonist or anything, but as long as they are at least a protagonist or a vital person to the plot, I will count it for this one. The third option is a very easy one, read a fantasy book. And then the fourth and final one is to read a book that you would protect with your life. This is a little bit weird and vague, but keep this in mind. This is very creative. Do whatever you want with this. Be very imaginative. But essentially, this is a book that is maybe like a limited edition, a collector's edition, signed edition. Maybe this is just a book that's really important to you. Maybe a reread of a book that you really love. One that if there was a fire, you would grab. Or if there was a situation where you needed to choose just 1 or 2 books, you would pick this book. Again, if this is too vague or this is a bit difficult, just go and stretch it. I don't mind. For a childhood friend, the first one is to read a middle grade book. The second one is a book that features friendship. I would say mostly try to have this actually be an important aspect to it. It doesn't have to be something that's always in the foreground, but please don't just have a book that has like a friend mentioned in past. Like make it something that is actually pretty prevalent to the story, or at least is reoccurring within the story. The third option is to read a contemporary or a cozy book. This one's pretty good and simple. Cozy is very popular right now, so read something that is very sweet, wholesome, and cute. And the last one is to read a book that has been on your TBR, want to read list, or your shelves for a very long time. Something you've had for a long time, regardless of where it is, and you need to get to it at some point. Last but not least, we have the villain and rival character. The first prompt is to read a book with a morally gray main character. Again, this is kind of broad, but maybe a character that's just not always good. Someone that has done things, bad things, decisions have been made that maybe aren't the best. The second one is a very obvious one. This is a book featuring rivals. I don't know if there's a lot of things I can kind of give you an option on, but I think like Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies does this. It's more a touch of romance in it, but still that is a book that would have rivals, even though they eventually kind of become allies, kind of, but there are still rivals between that. Any type of rivalry, friendship, rivalry, romance, rivalry, anything, you can count this for this prompt. The next one is to read a grimdark book. It doesn't have to be a fantasy, but grimdark fantasy is probably the most common in regards to grimdark. The last one is to have the POV of the villain or a evil character in the story. It's actually one of the main protagonists, one that you actually are in the eyes of. It doesn't have to be a first person POV, as long as there is a POV, or at least kind of more insight on them. So that is all for the alliance characters. Remember, if you want to have one of these as your allies, all you have to do is have at least 2 marked off in each column, and you have to at least minimum have 1 in each row on the top. So horizontal, you at least have to have 1 in each horizontal row, and again, the majority, if not tied, has to be the one of the characters that you want. The next is the romance path. This one is actually pretty self-explanatory as well. These are pretty much all romance prompts or romance books, pretty much. So let's go through them really quickly. The first one is your professor, teacher, librarian, any scholarly character. First one is to read a forbidden romance or a taboo romance. The second one is age gap. So read an age gap romance. It doesn't have to be a very young female character. So even like for romantasy, where there's like a 500 plus age gap, that counts. For color on the cover, this one will be purple. So as long as there's purple on the cover, I will say it doesn't matter how much or how little it is. As long as there's purple on the cover in some regard, this will count for that. The last one is very similar to the ally one, which is found family. So a character who finds a family of their own that they eventually love and adore. I put this in parentheses, but I don't really mean this as romance, but if you want to do it, I do not judge you for it. So if you want to have a found family but have romance within it, go ahead and do so. Credence comes to mind. Any kind of step anyone in your family kind of thing comes to mind as well. So hey, I can't judge. I've read a few books like that, so I'm not judging anyone, but if you want to do this, that's an option. For a love interest who's either your bodyguard or royalty, you have to read the first prompt as reading a bodyguard romance or royalty romance. So romance between like prince, princess, king, queen, etc. Bodyguard romance for Blood and Ash, or a royalty romance. The Folk of the Air trilogy is where she's with a prince. So as long as there is a romance between a king, a queen, prince, princess, anything in that regard. A lot of historical romances have a romance between like a duke. So again, whatever you think qualifies for this. The second option is your favorite trope. So any type of favorite romance trope. So only one bed, slow burn, enemies to lovers, grumpy sunshine, whatever you have as a favorite romance trope, read this for this prompt. For the color on the cover, you have to read a book with yellow on the cover. Again, as little or as much as you want. And the last one is to either read a millionaire romance or like a billionaire romance. The Dreamland Billionaire series is a great one for this one. Something like that where the characters are rich and she's with them. Or a romantasy, which is very broad, very easy to do. For childhood friends, this one's pretty simple. The first one is to read a friends to lovers. So a book with friends to lovers, so childhood friends to lovers, or just friends to lovers, whatever you want to do, this will qualify for that. The second one is a contemporary romance. Again, very, very simple and easy. The third one is to read a book with pink on the cover. Again, as little or as much as you want. The last one is to read a second chance romance. I feel like this is kind of a little bit harder to find, I would say. Although I know Emily Henry has done it before. I read Happy Place and that was a second chance romance. And last but definitely not least, we have romancing the villain or your rival, which I honestly kind of love this one. The first one is the classic enemies to lovers romance. This could also be rivals to lovers. So whatever one you want to do, this one is for that. The second one is to read a dark romance. This could be as dark as you want or as not dark as you want. As long as it's in that category of dark romance, this will count for that. For the color of the cover, you have to read a book with gray on the cover. Again, as little or as much as you want. And the last one is to have a villain as a love interest. Once more, I have a few books I know about this, but unfortunately it would be spoilers to tell you what these 2 books are or what these 2 series are. But essentially, characters who are seen as villainous. They do not have to be main villains. They don't have to actually be evil, horrible people. but if you want, it can be. You can also be a character who's just misunderstood and seen as a villain by different characters, so it doesn't have to be the actual villain of the story, but again, if you want it to be, you can. So those are all the prompts. On the Google document, I also have those explained, so if you do not understand what's happening on the actual paper itself or on these graphics themselves, I will be explaining every single prompt briefly on the Google document, which will be under the Google Drive, which I'll have below, which I have everything there. So if you have anything that you're confused about, please check that out first. So once you do your 4 minimum prompts, unless you have 2 characters, which would be 8 minimum prompts, you will be having your 2 allies. This is going to be really beneficial, like I said, for future fights. Whether you want to fight or help heal, they can help you with that, or they can do the opposite. So you can step back and heal while they fight for you. So it's up to you what you want to do, but these are very important if you want to actually help yourself in the future. This will give you definitely a benefit and actually assist you in the future for different battles. So keep that in mind for future things that are about to happen. At this point in time, you may potentially have 15 trust points. If you have all 15 trust points right now, which is the maximum amount you can get throughout all of the chapters and all side quests currently out right now. If you have 15 trust points, you get to add another +2 to your character's sheet. So when we make rolls in the future, again, we've done this, I think in the last chapter, when you make rolls, you get to add your modifiers on to your rolls. You get to add another +2 right now. So you already had one +2 in the past, and now you're having another +2. So either add that +2 onto a skill that you want, or you can divide the +2 and make it a +1 and a +1 and put that on 2 separate skills. So again, either 2 +1s on 2 separate skills or a +2 on a single skill. So that way your character has a higher chance of rolling well in that category. We are actually nearing the end of the video. I'm very excited about this, but I want to mention one more thing that's a lot of fun. So if you have an ally now, you can have 1 or 2 allies. So you can either choose between either one having one or both having one. But your allies can also have dragons, which is always a fun time. So you can actually now create your own dragon for them, which is, again, a lot of fun. You can either go back to chapter 1 and make it that way, so actually have it so you have to actually read a book to qualify for their dragon, or you can do it the easier way, the way that I'm going to be doing it, which is just create to your heart's content. Make whatever you want. Make them have whatever type of pattern they have. You can have them any color they have, any element they want. Whatever you want to do it. My character is Corvus, is going to have 2 allies. He's going to have 1 friend. He is a scholarly character who likes to study dragons, and so he's going to have a librarian, teacher kind of person to be his friend. That character is going to have a small little tiny dragon on his shoulder who will stay with him in the library and kind of help him find books in the school setting. So that is going to be Corvus's friend. And my love interest for my character is going to be kind of like the villain in the story, who's going to be the princess. So I'm going to have to actually tie the royalty and the villain together. She's not really a villain, but the reason why I said that is because my character has a blood dragon. Blood dragons are very much sought after in my world as evil because they drain blood in order to survive. And once those types of dragons get big enough, that's a lot of things they have to consume, if you know what I mean. They are very rare because they are usually culled once they are found. And so in my world, the royalty actually get rid of blood dragons, and so it's going to be a pretty interesting relationship once they both find out about each other. It's going to be a lot of fun. For him, it's going to be the princess. She will have the rival dragon. So blood dragons, their rivals are celestial dragons, and I'm so excited because celestial dragons are one of my favorite dragon types in my readathon, and so I'm going to have her have a celestial dragon, and she is going to be an astral elf. Decide the fictional race of your companions, decide what kind of dragons they have, if they have one, what they look like, what their colors are, all that fun stuff. Again, they can help you in the future, so keep that in mind, that their dragons can also help you in fights or in healing in the future and all that fun stuff. So hopefully you guys have fun with this. Sorry I talked a lot in this video, but hopefully you had a good time. Again, if you were confused by any of this, please let me know. I'll be available on the Discord to have conversations with you. Discord is the best place to ask questions, but you can also ask questions down below in this YouTube video, or check the FAQ. Hopefully there will be answers there if you have any. I am so excited about this one. This one's gonna be a lot of fun. The graphic isn't as pretty and not as eye-catching, but I'm still really excited to have allies and people who can join us and create our own dragons that we can have alongside us as well. So our own dragons are gonna have little friends with other dragons, and I'm loving it. There's no time limit, so do not pressure yourself to get this done at any point. This does officially start in June, so keep that in mind that you technically do start in June, but you can start anytime. You can even start today if you want to, so go ahead. The next chapter is going to be in November of this year, so that's going to be a pretty big chapter. I don't really know how it's going to work yet, but I'm excited about it. It's going to be a little bit nerve-wracking, but we are going to have some fun within that one. But until then, let's just enjoy our time with our companions and spend some time with them and, you know, have some wholesome time. Unless they're the villain, then maybe it's not so wholesome, but still. So I think that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for participating in my readathon. I appreciate every single person that has been taking part. I really honestly do care about you all, and I'm so grateful that there are so many people that are taking part in my readathon. I spent a lot of time with this readathon, and so I appreciate every single person who is just there supporting me by taking part in it. So thank you again for taking part in this, and hopefully have a lot of fun, read some amazing books, and I'm curious to see what your allies are going to be. So with that, thank you so much for being here. Have a great day, have a great reading month, and hope to see you all soon. Goodbye, everyone.